Hello aspirants, welcome back to Anthropology Concept Series. So friends, in today's discussion, let us try to understand about another important topic in anthropology, that is marriage and its definition and the universality of the marriage. So friends, let's try to understand this from one case study point of view. So there is a scholar called as George Peter Murdoch. So George Peter Murdoch has conducted a systematic study among around 250 societies, and he tried to conclude that in almost all the societies, that is out of 250 societies, so he found the institution of marriage in every society. So that is one astonishing thing. And another astonishing thing is that, so in almost all those 250 societies, so marriage does not existed as a same institution. That means it has been found in different forms in different societies. So that is one another astonishing factor. So now let us try to understand about the concept of marriage and the definition and universality of the marriage in a systematic fashion. So friends, myself Dr. Suresh Guramkunda, and I am the faculty of anthropology at SRIRAM's IAS, and I welcome you all to this session on behalf of SRIRAM's IAS. So now let us begin this session and let's try to understand the concept of marriage. So if you look at the very introductory aspect, so marriage, we can define marriage as a universal social institution. So try to remember this, that marriage is a universal social institution. So first and foremost thing that you have to remember here is that we are calling marriage as universal institution. So what do you mean by universal institution? That means if an institution which occurs in almost all the places, that is so across all the societies across the world, so then such kind of institution would be called as universal institution. And then we are calling it as a social institution. So what is a social institution? A social institution is nothing but all those social units which tries to control and regulate human behavior in the society are generally referred as social institutions. So now marriage is also one such social institution, but what behavior that it will regulate? So marriage as a social institution, it controls the sexual behavior as well as regulates the sexual relationship among the humans. So that's what marriage as a social institution, so basic function in the society. So now what is other aspect about the marriage? So what does it do? So it gives a cultural as well as social approval to the union between males and females in the society. So this is another important thing that we have to remember, because we have to systematically understand the concept. So now if we look into its universality, whether it exists in almost all the societies or not, so that's one another important thing. So friends, if we look from the perspective of that aspect, so it is an established fact that every human society in the world, be it could be from the most simple to the most complex societies, we can see the institution of marriage, or we can see the tradition of marriage, or we can see the custom of marriage. But there are very few exceptions to this particular thing. So if we look from the traditional Nair community of Malabar region, so there we could not able to see such kind of institution of marriage, because there existed a different system. So that is known as the visiting husband tradition used to be there amongst them. And then Na community of China. So in Na community of China also we cannot find such an institution. So this is one another basic information. But can we consider with a small exception that marriage is not a universal social institution? That means anthropologist says that no. Answer is no, because one thing is that G.P. Murdoch has conducted a study and concluded that through his study marriage is a universal social institution, and other thing is that most of the anthropologists, they will call it as a neo-universal social institution, wherein it exists in almost all the societies. So this is one conclusion that you can remember. So now if we look more into the aspects of definition of marriage, so if we generally talk from the perspective of marriage, usually people will say that marriage is a union between male and female. So that's one basic definition that everyone will give. But if we look into some authentic as well as anthropological ways of defining a marriage, so first we can start with the Western ideology's point of view. So if you look from the perspective of Western ideology, how marriage can be defined means marriage is regarded as an agreement or contract between two individuals. So what is the purpose of this particular activity? To produce and maintain the children. So in very simple fashion, so from Western ideology point of view, marriage is regarded as a contract or agreement between individuals, and there, particularly if we talk from the perspective of them, so the chief purpose of the marriage is to produce the children and to maintain the children. So try to understand this particular logic. But will this definition satisfies the condition for defining marriage? That means we can say no, because there are certain examples. Because first and foremost thing is, it is calling marriage as an agreement or contract. But if you talk from the perspective of certain societies, like in Indian society, if you see, marriage is regarded as a sacred institution. Marriage has some sort of sacred place, and it is very much central to the Indian society. So such kind of exceptions are there. And other thing, like, is only production of the children and maintenance of the children the prime motto of marriage? That means no, there are other important things also. So apart from these biological needs, so marriage as a social institution, it also tries to fulfill social needs as well as economic needs of the different members. So that's how we can say marriage is not only fulfills the biological needs, rather it also fulfills the social as well as economic needs of the couple. So that is one another thing. So from this point of view, we cannot say that this is a universally accepted definition. Now, if you look from G.P. Murdoch's point of view, that is George Peter Murdoch. So who is George Peter Murdoch? He is an American anthropologist. So according to him, marriage is a universal social institution. I hope you have understood this part. So that involves, very important thing, try to look at the criteria. That involves residential cohabitation. That means both the couple has to live under one roof. And economic cooperation. That means in between the couple there should be a systematic division of labor. And then formation of nuclear family. That means they have to establish a sort of nuclear family wherein the couple and their children will live. So this is the condition that G.P. Murdoch says. So if we look and if we try to introspect into this particular definition, again there are certain exceptions from this definition. So if you look, the first thing, residential cohabitation. So if you look from the perspective of the Noyer community of Malabar region, so there is a tradition called as visiting husband tradition among Noyers. So there they won't have the formal, they won't have that, like the couple will not live under one roof continuously. So we can study about this particular thing in our regular classes. For as far as now, you remember that this is an exception because in Nair community there is a visiting husband tradition. So that's one thing. And then apart from this, so if you see in Indian marriages, we can have the system of joint family. So what G.P. Murdoch is saying, that after marriage, couple will establish nuclear family. So this is also one another exception, right? So these are two important exceptions to this particular definition, right? So now if we look from the perspective of other definitions, so Westermarck is a Finnish anthropologist. He again tried to explain marriage in his own perspective. So what he has done, so he has systematically studied some communities, and Westermarck has given his definition. So wherein he says that marriage can be defined as a relationship of one or more men to one or more women. So wherein he is trying to just pitch forward the practice or the form of polyandrous or polygynous or polygamous marriage practices. So a relation of one or more men to one or more women, so which is recognized by the custom or law and involves certain rights and the duties both in the case of parties entering the union and in case the children born out of that particular relation. So this is what, according to Westermarck's point of view, the definition of marriage. Now what he is trying to pitch, he is trying to pitch a condition where he is trying to give a kind of validity to the polygamous as well as polyandrous marriages. So that's one thing. So we can see existence of polygamy in many societies, like be it could be Tibet, be it could be Canada, Canadian or take northern parts of Nepal, Nigeria. So in so many places we can see this polygamous marriage practice. So that is one thing. But what he is trying to say, relation of one or more men to one or more women. That means what he is saying, polygamy he is saying. Whereas what about men to men marriages? In some communities we can have men to men marriages, or in some communities we can have women to women marriages. Are you able to follow that? That means in some parts of the world we can see the homosexual marriage or some homosexual practices that are running. So this definition is not addressing that particular condition. So if you see from Ajanda community of Sudan, so usually what happens means they will follow the tradition of the homosexual marriages. So that is one thing. So it is an exception to this definition, and again, like the practice of same-sex marriages is legally allowed in almost roughly around more than 25 to 30 countries. So this is one another thing. So that part is not addressed in this. And then if you see other things, like we have Kathleen Gough, a British anthropologist. So what Kathleen Gough has done, so Kathleen Gough has tried to just study the Nair community of the Malabar region. So where we try to understand about the concept of the visiting husband tradition. So what she has given by observing the Nair community of Malabar region, so she has systematically given one definition. So what is that definition? According to Kathleen Gough, marriage is a relationship established between a woman and one or more other persons. Now what she is trying to say, she is trying to talk about the polyandrous condition, where one woman is getting married or will be having in relation with the multiple other persons, which provides that a child born to that woman under the circumstances which are not prohibited by the rules of relationship is accorded birth status and the rights common to the normal members of his society for a social stratum. So this is one particular condition that we can see and we can observe from the Nair community, traditional Nair community of Malabar region. So that's one thing. So she has systematically studied and put forth this definition, and she is taking this from the consideration point of the polyandry. But friends, one thing that we have to understand here is that there are certain exceptions for this particular thing also. So one exception or case study is like in Thoda community of Thodas of Nilgiri Hills, you can see a practice of bow and arrow ceremony, wherein there is no such kind of things. Like usually a child born to that woman will get the accorded the full birth status and rights common to the normal members of the society. So in Thodas it is not the case. So in Thodas there is a bow and arrow ceremony where the pregnancy precedes the marriage. So this is one thing. That means first a woman have to prove their fertility, and there would be a ceremony called as bow and arrow, where like a person has to present a bow and arrow to the women. If the woman accepts that bow and arrow from that particular person, then it is that she is accepting that person as husband. So that's how. So here in this case you can see the example, traditional example from the Nilagiri tribes, that is or Thoda tribes from Nilagiri Hills. So this is bow and arrow. So the man has to make it and he has to present it. So this is one another condition. So now just look other things like in Bonda tribes. So there is a tradition of marrying with a tree. So in Bonda tribes, the tribes will get married with a tree. So here what happens? So there is no mention about women. Here they are mentioning that women and one or more other persons. So there is no mention about the such kind of trees and all those things. So this is another exception. And then there is a tradition of live-in relationship among the Gond tribes of central India. So where if the children is born, then they won't give the full birth status. So that is one thing. And then apart from that, there is a culture called as Gotul culture, where in the Muria Gonds of central India, so they will follow this Gotul system, which are known as the youth dormitories, where the premarital sexual relationship will be allowed. So be it could be here, be it could be here, or be it could be in the Tudas. So premarital sexual relations have allowed. So they are all nothing but some of the systematic exceptions for this part of definition. So given by Kathleen Guff. Now, if you see from the perspective of the other definitions, so we had Malinowski. So Malinowski, who is he? Malinowski is a Polish anthropologist. So what he has said? So he has said that a legal marriage is the one which gives a woman socially sanctioned husband and the children a socially recognized father. So this definition given by Malinowski supports the practice of the Toda marriage thing. So just now we try to understand that in Todas there is a tradition called as bow and arrow ceremony. So wherein like a husband has to present or the man has to present a bow and arrow to the women. If the women accepts that particular thing, then only he'll be considered as the husband of that particular woman. So there, if you see that the woman is already pregnant now, so whatever the marriage that is going to happen, so in this what is going to happen, the woman is getting a socially accepted husband and the the child or the fetus will be getting a socially recognized father. So that is what the Malinowski's definition is all about. So this is with respect to the Thodas. So in simple, what he is trying to say, or in simple how he defined marriage means, so it's a contract for the procreation and maintenance of the children. So that's what again he has given from Western ideology point of view. So that's one thing. Now, if you look other definitions, so we need to have some authentic definition or from one credible definition. So that kind of credible or authentic definition that you can use in any of your answers is that the definition given by Royal Anthropological Institute of Great Britain and Ireland's definition. This is one such long-standing organization that we can have. So here what it says, according to the notes and queries in anthropology, that is the 1951 edition. So how marriage can be defined means, marriage is a union between man and women such that the children born to the women are recognized as the legitimate offsprings of the parents. So that's what the definition is all about. So here it is talking that marriage is a union between man and women. So what about the man-to-man marriages which exists in some communities? Let's say, as we have already discussed, Agenda community of Central Africa. And then what about the women-to-women marriages that exist in some communities like Nuyers of South Sudan, South Africa, and Nandi community of Kenya? What about this? And what about some special type of marriages called as ghost marriages? So this again exists in New Year community. So these are all nothing but certain exceptions to this definition. But nevertheless, what we can do is there is reason, a particular reason for these kind of marriages that we'll study in our classroom. Okay, now what we can say is that this is one authentic definition that you can use in your answers because it has some credible backup with an institution. So that is Royal Anthropological Institute of Great Britain and Ireland. So you have to remember this thing also, that the notes and queries in anthropology, that is the edition. So you have to remember that publication. So this is basically about various definitions given by various scholars. So at the end what we can say is that, so friends, try to remember that. So you can see the communities, like here you can see Nandi community of the Kenya and Agenda community of the Africa. So man-to-man marriages, and Nuer community of Sudan. So ghost marriages. So like that. So you have to remember and you have to just keep these things also into mind. So friends, so at the end what we can say is that, so marriage as a social institution exists in almost all the societies. So therefore, we can call it as a neo-universal social institution, or from G.P. Murdoch's point of view, we can call it as a universal social institution. So that's the conclusion for the particular topic, that is marriage, the definition and its universality. So my dear friends, so this is all for today. So let's meet in other videos with another interesting topic. So till then, take care and try to revise all the important concepts. So if you want to just get clarify any of your doubts, you can just get an appointment from my side, and only thing that you have to do is that go to the description box and try to just register yourself for one-to-one mentorship for anthropology optional by Dr. Suresh Guramkunda sir. So that's what you can do. So I'll be there for you to just clear off all your doubts. So that's all from my side for today. So thank you all.